One of my favorite things, I don't know what your take on it is the fact that people kept not recognizing Jesus after he came back. That's
Yeah.
a
I think
strange
it's
one.
I think it's the one of the things that most people haven't paid enough attention to. One of the strangest verses in the entire Bible is Acts chapter 1, verse 3, where right after his resurrection, the author of Acts says that Jesus spent 40 days with his disciples, proving with many proofs that he'd been raised from the dead.
Is he in a disguise? Was it like somebody else in a wig saying, I'm Jesus?
What kind of proof do you do, though? Do you do card tricks? I mean, I don't get it. What do you do?
Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. I am so thrilled to be joined once again by Dr. Bart Ehrman. Hi, Bart. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks.
Thank you so much for coming back. We had a really good time last time we spoke. Everybody really enjoyed it. You, as I say, you have a lot of fans on my channel, so that's very exciting. So you've got a debate coming up on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Very exciting to see two Bible scholars going head to head on one of the biggest ones. I think it's fair to say, right?
Well, I mean, it's hard to get much bigger when it comes to Christianity. If Jesus is not raised from the dead, we don't have this religion. And since there are 2 billion people, over 2 billion, who worship him, it's a rather big deal. Yeah.
Absolutely, which you've pretty much hit one of the questions I wanted to ask you today already. So I'll just jump right in. I've heard many people say that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the foundation of belief for Christians. It's the fundamental and most important belief. It's necessary to believe in a literal physical resurrection to be a Christian. So what kind of impact do you think this sort of debate has?
I will say that, in my opinion, it's not right. I think people do say that you've got to believe in a literal physical resurrection, or you can't be a Christian. But I have to point out, I don't know who's made these rules about who can and cannot be a Christian, but the person who makes the rules is the one who believes the thing that the rule supports. And so I know a lot of Christians who do not believe in an actual physical resurrection of Jesus. But my opponent, Mike Licona, does, and he thinks it is important. If Jesus, if the early, I think the early Christians thought Jesus was raised from the dead physically, and if they hadn't thought that, I will say this much: if they had not thought that, they would not have come to believe in it. And so they certainly thought it was physical, and so it is a big deal, because I don't think Christianity could possibly have started. Jesus was a preacher who was preaching that a kingdom of God was soon to come, and his disciples seemed to think, they probably did think, that he would be the king of that kingdom, but they didn't think it would be some kind of, that the Messiah would die and be raised from the dead. They thought he was going to rule in Jerusalem, and that didn't happen. He got crucified, and so without the resurrection, they would have said, "Oh my God, boy, did we get that one wrong?" But instead, they came to think that he was raised from the dead, and it changed everything. It started this new religion.
You've spoken to Mike about this already, and you've talked about the resurrection a few times. Can you give us a little overview of your position before the debate?
Yeah, we haven't debated this before. This is going to be very different. This is an all-day debate. This is like we're not. This is not going to be like kind of trying to cut the story short. We're actually both going to really go for it. And my in all my debates so far with him, I basically said, look, even if Jesus was raised from the dead, a historian cannot show it. And I absolutely think that's true. In fact, I thought that was true when I was a Christian, because I knew what history does, and history cannot talk about acts of God. I mean, because God is not susceptible to historical research. He's just not, even if he exists. In this debate, I'm going to go farther. I'm going to show why I myself actually don't believe in the resurrection, and to explain why, for me, it's implausible. And I don't think I've ever done that before, because I've been hesitant. I didn't want to step on toes. I still don't want to step on toes, but I might as well say what I think. I mean, not because I'm trying to like deconvert anybody. That almost never works, even when you try. And so it's not that I'm trying to do that, but it is worthwhile for me to say, why I think it's a problematic assertion that Jesus was raised from the dead. At the same time, I point out that even if he was, you can't prove it.
On a related note then, what do you feel is the impact? What do you hope? What's your ideal impact to come from a debate on something like the resurrection?
I think there are forms of modern Christianity that are problematic. They're at least they're troubling to me. They're the kinds of Christianity that insist that that their views are right and they can prove it. And the problem with that is that if you can be demonstrably right, then that means everybody else in the world is demonstrably wrong. And it doesn't just apply to the resurrection, it applies through the entire Christian set of beliefs and the social and political agendas that go with it. And so, if you can prove that Jesus was raised from the dead, you can prove that the Bible is right, then you can prove, for example, that women should not speak in church. Or that the LGBTQ community is damned to hell, or that you can prove all sorts of things, and that just strikes me as extremely dangerous. But the problem is that you actually cannot prove claims of faith. Claims of faith are things you believe. They're not things you can prove. If you could prove them, there'd be nothing to believe. I don't believe that the square root of 9 is 3. It's not something I believe. It's like it's a fact. And so facts can be proved, but beliefs cannot be proved. And so I think it's a dangerous form of Christianity. It's one that I used to hold myself. So I think I understand it pretty well. I used to go around arguing that I could prove Jesus was raised from the dead. I get all that, but I don't think it ends up being good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're in a fantastic position to be able to make those arguments, have that perspective. On that note, can you give us a little hint of some of the main arguments maybe you've read before or you expect to hear on trying to prove this is, historical?
Well, Mike wrote a very big book about this, and so we'll have 7 hours. And one way to spend those 7 hours is just have Mike read his book, because he wouldn't get done in 7 hours. It's a very big book.
Yeah.
But he does think that historians theoretically can demonstrate anything that happened in the past, and that if Jesus was raised from the dead, it's susceptible of historical proof, and that that I think would be a kind of a common sense view. Because if something happened, you can show it, right? Why not? It happened. But in fact, historians don't work that way. Mike and I have very profound disagreements about what it is that historians do, and I think part of the problem is that Mike has always been in Christian circles and has not really kind of hung out with historians as historians. The way I do. I'm in a university. I'm in a research university, and none of my historical colleagues think that you can prove miracles. This is not even a topic of conversation. It's like, if you ask them that, they would say, "What?" And so there's going to be that kind of thing. But there's also going to be, and for most people, that isn't as interesting as it is to me. So it's not going to be the highlight of but I think it is important to point out that the vast majority of stuff in the past, you just can't demonstrate historically. You just can't. And I'll give illustrations of that. The other issue is the reliability of the Gospels. Are the Gospels reliable sources for anything? What do you do about the contradictions in the sources? Not just about the resurrection, but generally, are these trustworthy sources? And so so what do you do with discrepancies, for example? So that's the kind of thing we're going to be talking about, is the Gospels, the reliability, whether they can establish what happened in the past, and that kind of thing.
Cool. That's so exciting. I can't wait, especially because, you read it and you think, okay, well, these are several different accounts. Nobody saw it happen. One of my favorite things, I don't know what your take on it is the fact that people kept not recognizing Jesus after he came back. That's a strange one.
I think it's one of the things that most people haven't paid enough attention to. That it's a very strange thing in the Gospels. Just about every time Jesus shows up, his disciples doubt that he's been raised from the dead. But when you think about that for a second, it's very weird. One of the strangest verses in the entire Bible is Acts chapter 1, verse 3, where right after his resurrection, the author of Acts says that Jesus spent 40 days with his disciples, proving with many proofs that he'd been raised from the dead. What? If he's with the disciples and he's talking to them and they're touching him and watching him eat fish and things, what kind of proofs does he have to do for 40 days? I mean, if you see him, why don't you just say, oh, there he is? I mean, you've seen it. So what's with these 40 days thing? And so, yeah, so the doubt thing is a very interesting tradition. And I think every time Jesus shows up, people doubt it. And what's that all about? My view is that you have these doubt traditions because the disciples of Jesus did doubt that he was raised from the dead. And these stories are incorporating it. That would be interesting. How many of the 12 disciples actually believed it? It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really weird one. I always think, was he in a disguise? Was it like somebody else in a wig saying, "I'm Jesus"?
What kind of proof do you do though? Do you do card tricks? I mean, I don't get it. What do you do?
I really can't wait to hear about it. So is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Anything exciting we can expect?
I'm really excited about the debate because, as I said, usually in these debate contexts, I've done a lot of debates, and you can see them, and people do debates all the time on YouTube and stuff. And part of the problem is, you get up and you give your 20-minute position, and then the other guy gets up and gives his 20-minute position. Then you got 10 minutes to reply to him, and he's got 10 minutes to reply to you, and you're doing all kind of off the cuff and stuff. So this thing is going to be really more interesting than that, and it's going to be a lot of back and forth, and it's going to be where we can take each other on. And so I don't know what Mike has up his sleeve, because he's basically toted the same line the whole time, and so I don't know. I think I'll be surprised if he comes up with something other people haven't said before. I mean, it's not, but I think it'll be interesting, and I think it'll be interesting in part because Mike himself is educated as he's got a degree a PhD in New Testament, and he knows there are problems with the New Testament. And he actually will admit there are contradictions in the New Testament. But then he continues to say that even though there are contradictions, that, well, Matthew will say the opposite of what Jesus really, he'll say, but it's inerrant. So you have one account that's wrong, but it's inerrant. That's kind of, that's an interesting line, and we'll want him to explain that.
Yeah, what an interesting position. I think it's going to be amazing.
The resurrection narratives you have, I have my students look at them and say, okay, I carefully go through it and compare them. Do you see different? Oh yeah, they're different. Are they in contrast? Well, yeah, actually, there do seem. Yep, there do seem to be.
Yeah, it can't be avoided. All right. I'm so excited. I hope that everybody checks it out, because I think it's going to be big. Like you say, it's two very educated gentlemen, which is nice for a change sometimes compared to the debates we see on YouTube, going head to head for a proper big showdown. So I think it's going to be really exciting. Thank you so much for talking to me about it.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really can't wait.
Okay,
thank
great.
you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed another interview with Dr. Bart Ehrman. I'm so lucky to have been able to speak to him twice. I know I keep saying it, but I am genuinely so excited to see this debate between Dr. Ehrman and Dr. Mike Licona. They are two proper heavyweight Bible scholars with extremely different opinions, but both very genuine debaters and very nice people. I think Dr. Ehrman's position is extremely not just well researched, but well thought through, particularly due to his background as a Christian. I just think it's going to be freaking awesome. So if you want to catch this debate, which I really think you should, do check out the link down below. I'll pop it in the description. I'll pop it in a pinned comment. Remember, like Bart said, this is not your everyday whoever on YouTube, 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes for you, scramble. This is a big deal. This is a hardcore, long-form debate where we really have time to get into the nitty-gritty. It's gonna be so cool. It's a really awesome opportunity. I do highly recommend you check it out. The resurrection is such a huge and important topic. It's just going to be so cool. Thank you once again for watching. Do leave all your thoughts down below. Maybe you can even leave your expectations, your hopes, your questions down below. And then once we've seen the debate, you can come back and we can talk about what we thought afterwards. That would be really, really cool if people wanted to do that. As always, before we go, I would like to give a huge shout out and a big thank you to my giant chickens over on Patreon. Aaron Speer, Amalgam of Neuroses, Amber, Azku, Baked Bads, Bert Whitehead, Chantale, Chris Simpson, Connie Wright, Conla Chicken Maximus Lions, goddammit Conla, Cory Garner, Curious Quacker, Danny, Denny5252, Dr Mint, L, Faye Gregory, Fulcrum, Gaming Ridge, Gay of Reckoning, George Bush, Henry Curtis, Izzy, Jan Bojarp, Jason Metcalf, Joe Rowe, John Fry, John Smith, Kent Woodward, Chris Convaga, Lizzie Gale, Lynn Dobbs, Mattus McChicken Nuggetus, Miles Tegg, Mogaringa, Mr. Creosote, Nerd Fiction, Ninja Red, Peter Kirouac, Psyched Dude, Kike, Racing Pig, Rosina Keller, Sarah Shavy, Simping on Emma Thorne, Seriously, Supreme Potato 471, Tank Low, Taxman, Thalia Says Trans Rights, The Enchanter formerly known as Tim, The Myth Vision Podcast, Tracy O'Rourke, Valerie and Wasatch Witch. Thank you so much for your support, you guys are amazing! I'm still overwhelmed at the fact that I got to interview the Dr Bart Ehrman not once but twice. I'm having a whale of a time right now. Do like this video if you enjoyed it. Please do leave your thoughts down below. Check out the link down below for the debate. It's gonna be epic. Have a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.